Prime Minister said repeatedly that he had no knowledge of funds from the dictatorship in Beijing going to federal election candidates. Today we learned that is not true. His department prepared a briefing that said a large clandestine transfer of funds earmarked for the federal election from the PRC in Toronto was transferred to an elected provincial government official via a staff member of a 2019 federal candidate. Why did the Prime Minister say the opposite of what he knew to be true?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the issue of foreign interference in our democracies and our institutions is extraordinarily serious, and that's why, as a government, we have always taken it incredibly seriously, including by building and creating new mechanisms to oversee and to ensure that we can counter that interference and demonstrate to Canadians that they can have confidence in their institutions. But on the specific question, as both myself and the NSIA stated last fall, we have no information on any federal candidates receiving money from China, and that continues to remain the case.
Hear, hear. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, that is impossible, because not only did his own department prepare a briefing for him, which said that candidates had received funds, so did his own security committee, which said, and I'm quoting now from Global News, Global News also learned of an earlier high-level warning about clandestine funding of China's preferred candidates that came from a bipartisan panel of parliamentarians 2 months before the 2019 election. That so-called bipartisan panel is the Prime Minister's secret committee. They report to him. He knew. Why did he say the opposite of what he knew?
Yeah. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I said last fall, as the National Security and Intelligence Advisor stated, we have no information on federal candidates receiving money from China. That continues to be the case. In regards to the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to correct the honourable member and highlight that committee actually publishes reports to Parliament and to the public. That is something that is very, very clear. It's a committee of parliamentarians that get top secret clearance so they can look at everything our intelligence committees do and then report back to our Parliament.
Well, Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the Prime Minister stated another falsehood. He said it reports to public. Many of its findings are not reported to public. And second, Section 21 of the Act that creates that committee states that its reports go to the Prime Minister. They have to go to the Prime Minister, and he is the one that decides what becomes public thereafter. Therefore, he knew when that committee reported that candidates received money directed by the dictatorship in Beijing, and yet he has been and continues to say exactly the opposite. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, parliamentarians can now go to the Library of Parliament or go online and see reports from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that were released publicly to them. The National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, which the previous Conservative government opposed as an oversight body, actually allows parliamentarians to attain those top secret clearance levels to look into everything our intelligence agencies do and report back to Parliament, to me, to Canadians, on how that's working.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Section 21 of the Act that creates that secret committee says, and I quote, each year the committee must submit to the Prime Minister a report of the reviews it conducted during the preceding years. In other words, he did receive the report. He should stop playing word games. Nobody needs to go to the library. What we need to do is get to the truth. The Prime Minister knew that his own security committee said Beijing had directed funds to candidates in preceding elections, and yet he continues to say exactly the opposite. Is he saying that the committee is lying?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to clear up the confusion around what the committee reports. Yes, the committee reports to me and to the government, but it also reports to parliamentarians and shares those reports. So this is the way many committees function in our government, and will continue to. In regards to the issue of whether federal candidates received money from China, as I've stated many times, we have no information on that.
Leader of the Opposition.
We all agree that the Prime Minister has seen the report. Well, this is what Global News says of the report. Global News has learned of an earlier high-level warning about clandestine funding of China's preferred candidates that came from a bipartisan panel of parliamentarians 2 months before the 2019 election. China gave money to its preferred candidates. The Prime Minister admits that the committee reported to him on this fact. Why does he continue to state the diametric opposite of the truth in his answers in this House of Commons?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all understand how important it is that Canadians can have both confidence in our government's ability to counter foreign interference and confidence in the transparency and openness with which that happens. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, beyond the partisan to and fro that we necessarily see in this House, it is important to create an independent, unimpeachable special rapporteur who is going to be able to oversee the entire landscape around national security to make sure that the committees are doing their work, that the various bodies keep Canada safe.